because we've seen a lot of other teams involved in this World Cup having international friendlies in the build-up. We haven't seen that from the United States, but it looked like they got some maybe live sparring today.
Yes. I mean, it's actually it's interesting that you bring that up because I've been surprised that they didn't want to have a proper friendly. This is a team that's young, that's inexperienced, that hasn't had a lot of time together because of injuries. During the qualifying cycle, they've very rarely had each of the starters they'd want at their position. So I assumed that they would want to play a proper game, but I think that Greg Berhalter and the U.S. soccer staff decided, no, we want to sort of take advantage of the opportunity that we have where everybody is healthy, keep the training as controlled as possible. Tonight, they were on the field with Al Gharafa, which is the Qatari team that plays at the stadium where they've been training. They didn't call it a scrimmage. They didn't call it a friendly. They called it a joint training exercise. I don't know if that's like one of those NFL, joint practices they do in the preseason sometimes. But my understanding from folks who were there was that it was pretty low intensity, and the idea, obviously, was to keep everybody who is healthy exactly that way.
All right, Sam, you've been following this team since you got here to Qatar, and obviously for much longer than that in the build-up to this World Cup. You've been going to the press conferences, you've been going to the training sessions. If you can, give us kind of a general vibe, the mood around the team, and then maybe what you heard today in the pressers.
Yeah, I mean, I think not surprisingly, the general vibe is one of anticipation. 25 of the 26 guys on the team have never played in a World Cup. DeAndre Yedlin, the only one who has. And so to them, this is all new. This is the dream they've had for their entire careers. And to have a chance to finally be here, I mean, they're reveling in it. I think one of the things that's really interesting is that unlike most World Cups, and Herc, you know this, here, they're unpacking. They were told, take your clothes out, put them in the drawers, put the books you brought on the shelf. They're going to stay there for the entire tournament. There's not going to be a getting on a plane and going to Rustenburg or Johannesburg or Manaus. They're going to play all their games right here, and they're going to sleep in the same bed every night. And so that's very different than what the typical World Cup experience is like. And I think, honestly, for a group like this one, it's probably a good thing. They're going to be able to get comfortable in their surroundings. They're going to feel at home, and I think that will probably lead to better performances all around.
Sam, who did you hear from today at the presser?
Yeah, it was interesting. We heard from Tim Ream, who I think is one of the, obviously the most fascinating stories on the team, and that he hasn't been a part of the qualifying process. I mean, the last time he played for the U.S. national team, it was, I think, 14 months ago, last September. And so he said that he had made peace with the idea that it wasn't going to happen for him. And it was only really within the last 3 or 4 weeks that it even became a possibility that he might be on the team. I really enjoyed hearing that, the team, everybody else on the team looks at him as sort of the grandpa. That's literally what they call him. He's 35 years old, and he's by far the senior member of the team.
All right, I think we've got some press conference sound here. Let's listen in to what the boys said in the presser earlier today.
Yeah, there's a queue of questions that people have for DeAndre, considering he's the only one with obviously the World Cup experience. But DeAndre, from a perspective and the role that he plays within this team, he's such an important person to have around.
It's a journey. It's an experience that they'll remember for the rest of their lives, and hopefully when they're in their 80s and telling their grandkids about the World Cup, they'll be able to remember it vividly. So I think it's important that every one of these guys just tries to stay present and just be aware really of everything that's going on, because it is an incredibly special time.
Really interesting.
Well, Tim Ream may be the grandpa of the group, 35 years of age. Go ahead, Sam. Go ahead.
No, I was just going to say really interesting stuff from DeAndre there. Obviously, when he played in the World Cup in 2014, he was about 21 years old, very similar to the ages of many of the guys on the team right now. And so he's got a real interesting perspective. He said to them that, it's going to feel big. It's going to feel like this thing you've dreamed about, and you should revel in that. You should accept it, but also recognize that this is something that you've done before. You've played football, you've played soccer, you've played in big games. A lot of these guys have played in the Champions League. Don't be overwhelmed by the situation. And I think, honestly, that to me, that's the biggest obstacle this U.S. team has to get past. They have the talent. They certainly have the ability to play with any of the teams that they're going to face. The question is, can they handle the moment? Can they handle the pressure of playing on their sport's biggest stage?
All right, let's talk about those leaders. You already said Tim Ream, 35 years of age. DeAndre Yedlin, the only player on this roster who's actually been to a World Cup. Do we have an indication of who Greg Berhalter's captain will be? Because he's sort of been rotating that armband when, in my eyes, it's always been Tyler Adams. What do you think, Sam?
No, I completely agree, Herc. To me, it's a no-brainer that it should be Tyler Adams, and it does seem as though Berhalter has rotated around. My sense was that in a lot of instances, particularly like when he gave it to Christian Pulisic for a game or two, it was almost to boost Pulisic's confidence, right? It always seemed to come after he'd had a tough spell at Chelsea or where, he needed a sort of a boost. Now we're at the World Cup. You've got to go with the guy who deserves it. In my mind, that is Tyler Adams. I think in an ideal situation, Adams wouldn't come off the field in any of the 3 games. He'd play 90 minutes every day. I'm not sure you could say that about any of the other candidates from the Leadership Council. For me, Tyler Adams should be the captain, and I would expect that's the decision that Berhalter will make.
Okay, well, let's talk about some guys that maybe aren't 90-minute fit yet. Maybe some injuries. Who are we watching right now? Weston McKennie, Serginho Dest, Matt Turner. Where are they at in terms of their injuries?
Yeah, my understanding is that Turner is fine. I think, he has said that he feels good. Everything I've heard is that he's going to start, he's going to play against Wales. That, obviously he was frustrated to miss the Europa League games with Arsenal, but then in the end it was a good thing. It allowed him to be ready and set to go here for the duration. In terms of McKennie, I think they are monitoring that. It seems as though he's going to be a starter. I don't know that he is a 90-minute player at this moment, but I think you would expect that McKennie will be out there. Dest, to me, is the biggest question. He did individual work yesterday. It wasn't clear. Tonight's training session was closed, so it wasn't clear whether he participated or not. But I don't think there's any question, guys, that he hasn't been a 90-minute player in a while. It'd be stunning to me if he was for the U.S. in Game 1. And obviously we saw during qualifying, he very rarely played multiple games in the same window. I think at most it was 2. He never played in all 3 when they had those 3-game windows. I would not expect him to be a 90-minute player right off the bat.
Well, thank you very much for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming, premium content, and let's not forget as well, ESPN FC 7 days a week. Subscribe to ESPN+.